The large house sat quietly at the edge of the city, surrounded by tall iron gates and perfectly trimmed gardens. From the outside, it looked peaceful, almost gentle. But inside, life followed strict rules. Every step, every sound, every movement was controlled by time and money. This house belonged to a billionaire who was known across the country for his sharp mind and cold discipline. People feared him, admired him, and whispered about him, but very few truly knew him. Every morning before sunrise, a woman arrived through the servants' entrance. She wore plain clothes, always clean, but never new. Her hands were rough from years of work, and her eyes carried a quiet tiredness that no amount of sleep could erase. She worked as a maid in the house, cleaning rooms so large they felt empty, polishing floors that already shined and washing dishes that had barely been touched. Most people in the house barely noticed her presence. To them, she was just part of the background, like the walls or the stairs. She never complained. She never spoke unless spoken to. She kept her head down and did her work with care. The other staff sometimes wondered how she stayed so calm in a place where everyone felt pressure. They didn't know that she had learned long ago how to survive by staying silent. At the end of every long day, when the sun dipped low and the mansion lights came on, she left through the same door she entered. She returned to a small rented home, not far from the city's old market area. It was nothing special to small rooms, thin walls, and furniture bought secondhand. But inside that home waited the only reason she kept going: her twin children. They were still young, but already different from other children their age. They spoke clearly, asked deep questions, and noticed things most people ignored. They had sharp eyes and calm faces that didn't match the noise and chaos of the street they lived on. Neighbors often commented on how polite and well-mannered they were. Even though they had grown up with very little, the children believed their mother worked in a big house. That was all she ever told them. She never spoke about the owner of the house, never shared stories of rich dinners or expensive parties. To her, those things belonged to a world that could never mix with her own. Every night, after dinner, she helped the twins with their schoolwork. She listened carefully as they read aloud, corrected their mistakes gently, and encouraged them when they struggled. She believed education was the only door that might open a better future for them. No matter how tired she felt, she never skipped this routine. Sometimes, when the children were asleep, she sat alone by the small window. The city lights flickered in the distance, and memories she tried to forget slowly returned. Memories of another time, another life, when hope had felt close enough to touch. Years ago, before the twins were born, she had worked at a different place owned by the same billionaire. Back then, she was younger and still believed kindness could exist anywhere. The billionaire had noticed her because she worked harder than anyone else and never asked for anything. Their conversations started small, polite, and rare. Over time, those conversations became longer. He spoke to her like she was human, not invisible, but that past was dangerous to remember. When she found out she was pregnant, everything changed. She tried to tell him the truth, but doors that were once open suddenly closed. Messages went unanswered. Guards were instructed not to let her in. Within weeks, she was removed from her job and told never to return. She never fought back. She never asked for help. She took what little savings she had and disappeared from that part of the city. Years later, fate brought her back to his world, but not by choice. She needed work desperately, and the new agency that hired her never told her where she would be assigned. On her first day, when she saw the familiar gates, her heart nearly stopped. She considered turning around and walking away, but she couldn't. Her children needed food, school fees, and a roof over their heads. So she stayed. She kept her distance. She avoided eye contact. She worked quietly and made sure her schedule never crossed directly with his. For the most part, it worked. The billionaire was often busy, traveling or locked away in his private office. Weeks sometimes passed without her seeing him, but the twins couldn't stay invisible forever. Occasionally, the children had no choice but to come with her to the mansion when school was closed, and she couldn't afford childcare. The house manager allowed it, as long as they stayed in the staff area and didn't disturb anyone. The first time the twins walked into the mansion, a few workers froze. Something about the children felt familiar. Their posture, the shape of their eyes, even the calm confidence in the way they moved, it all felt strangely known. One older staff member whispered, "They look just like him." Another brushed it off, saying many children resemble powerful men in magazines. But the thought lingered. The twins were quiet and respectful. They sat together, reading books or drawing pictures, never running through the halls or touching anything that wasn't theirs. They watched everything closely, as if trying to understand the world they had stepped into. One afternoon, as the billionaire walked through the main hallway, one of the twins accidentally stepped into view. For a brief moment, the billionaire stopped. He stared at the child longer than necessary. His expression shifted confusion mixed with something deeper. "Whose child is that?" he asked sharply. Before anyone could answer, the child was pulled back into the staff area by their mother. Her heart pounded in her chest. She lowered her head and apologized without being asked. The billionaire said nothing more and continued walking. But his steps slowed. Something about that child disturbed him in a way he couldn't explain. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing the child's face in his mind. The eyes, the calm stare, the shape of the jaw. It felt like looking into a mirror from the past. He tried to convince himself it was coincidence, but the feeling refused to leave. Meanwhile, the maid sat beside her sleeping children, her hands shaking slightly as she brushed hair away from their faces. She knew that moment would come one day. She had prayed it would never happen, but deep down, she understood the truth. Some secrets can stay buried for years, but they never disappear. They wait, and the longer they wait, the more powerful they become. Days passed after the brief encounter in the hallway, but the memory of the child's face remained with the billionaire. It was strange how a single glance could disturb him so deeply. He had seen many people in his life, workers, friends, strangers, and none had made him pause like that. He tried to push the thought away, telling himself it was just a coincidence. Children often shared similar features with adults, he reasoned. Yet every time he walked past the staff area, he caught himself staring longer than necessary. Meanwhile, the maid noticed a subtle change in the household. Workers whispered behind closed doors, eyes darting nervously when the twins were around. She overheard comments about their quiet confidence and their unusual calmness in a world full of rules and pressure. She didn't know whether to feel proud or afraid. Proud because her children were growing strong and smart. Afraid because the attention they were attracting could uncover secrets she had fought so hard to keep buried. The twins themselves noticed the change. They didn't understand the reason, but they could sense tension in the air. The other children in the staff quarters stared at them, some with curiosity, some with suspicion. The twins, however, remained polite and careful. They had been taught by their mother to observe before acting, to speak only when necessary, and to never trust appearances. One morning, the billionaire decided to walk through the staff quarters without announcement. He wanted to see for himself if there was anything unusual. When he entered, he caught sight of the twins again. They were sitting together, reading a small book, completely focused. Their eyes lifted briefly when he passed, polite and calm, then returned to the pages. There was no fear, no hesitation, just a natural grace that struck him deeply. He could not understand why this unsettled him. He had always been in control. He had always known the rules of people and power. Yet these children seemed to exist outside those rules, untouched by fear or authority. It reminded him of someone from his past, someone he had never forgotten. The maid worked silently, cleaning the rooms, organizing the pantry, and making sure everything ran smoothly. She kept glances toward her children, always alert, always protective. She knew the billionaire's attention, even if indirect, could change everything in a moment. And she had learned from experience that moments like this could never be predicted or controlled. Later that afternoon, one of the twins asked her a question that made her pause. "Mother, why do people look at us differently here?" The child's voice was calm, curious, not accusatory. She took a deep breath, thinking about how much to reveal and how much to hide. She chose her words carefully. Some people notice things, dear. Sometimes people see more than we think, but it's nothing to worry about. Just keep being yourself. That's all that matters. The twins accepted the answer, though their expressions betrayed a hint of curiosity. Children could sense more than adults realized. They had inherited her caution and awareness, and now, unknowingly, they were drawing attention from the man who had once changed her life forever. Days turned into weeks. The billionaire began noticing more than just physical resemblance. Certain gestures, the way the twins spoke. Even small preferences in food and music reminded him of memories he had long buried. Memories he had forced himself to forget. Memories he had believed would never return. He found himself watching them from a distance, feeling an odd combination of fear and fascination. He told himself repeatedly that it was nothing. He could not allow himself to dwell on it, not when his life and reputation demanded total control. But the more he tried to ignore the feelings, the stronger they grew. One evening, during a dinner held for a few business associates, I saw the twins again, quietly sitting in the staff area. One of his guests happened to glance at them and commented casually, "Children with such poise are rare, especially in a place like this." The billionaire's hand tightened around his glass. He could feel his heartbeat quicken. The comment, though innocent, carried a weight he could not ignore. Poise, intelligence, calmness, these were qualities he had noticed before. And now, he was forced to face them in a context that made everything complicated at home. The maid noticed the children becoming more observant themselves. They began asking more questions about the mansion, about the people they saw, and about the stories she never told. She answered carefully, avoiding any detail that could reveal the past. Yet she could not stop a small part of her from hoping that one day, her children would understand the truth, not in anger, not in fear, but as a right they deserved to know. One afternoon, an older member of the staff, someone who had served the billionaire for decades, approached her quietly. "They look just like him," the elder said in a low voice, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "I've served this family for many years, and I've never seen anything like it." The maid felt a chill run through her. She nodded, her heart pounding, but said nothing. The truth was always dangerous, and even a hint could change everything. She knew she had to keep her children safe no matter what. The billionaire began to notice more direct signs. Small things, like the way one of the twins instinctively mirrored a movement he often made, or how they asked a question in a tone he remembered from years ago. He began to wonder if the coincidences were really coincidences at all. His mind, trained to solve problems, could not dismiss the mounting evidence. He could feel the walls of control he had built around his life beginning to crack at the same time. The twins remained unaware of the growing tension. They continued their routine, polite, attentive, and respectful. But their presence created a quiet storm that no one, not even the billionaire himself, fully understood. The maid watched from the background, always vigilant. She knew that one day someone would ask questions she could not ignore. And when that day came, she would have to protect her children, their future, and the life she had fought so hard to keep intact. She knew it was only a matter of time before the truth demanded to be seen. Whether the world was ready or not, evenings became a time of quiet reflection for the billionaire. He would sit in his office, staring at documents, contracts, and reports. Yet his mind was elsewhere. He replayed moments in his memory, comparing them to the children he had glimpsed. The realization that he might have biological children he never knew existed filled him with a mix of fear, regret, and curiosity. The house, grand and imposing, felt smaller somehow. The walls that had once symbolized control now seemed to close in, reminding him that some truths could not be locked away. The twins, innocent and unaware, had already begun to change the balance of his carefully constructed world. And the maid, ever silent, ever vigilant, continued her work with a quiet strength. She moved through the mansion like a shadow, protecting her children while navigating a world that was far more dangerous than anyone outside the gates could imagine. Her heart carried the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future, but she never wavered in her determination to shield the children she loved. Above all else, The tension between past and present, truth and secrecy, innocence and suspicion, hung over the mansion like a quiet storm. Everyone in the house felt it in some way, though none fully understood its source. Only a few sensed the truth waiting to emerge. A truth that would soon challenge everything they believed and force them to face a reality that had been hidden for far too long. The weeks following the subtle discoveries became heavier for the billionaire. Each time he walked past the staff area, he felt an almost magnetic pull toward the twins. He tried to dismiss it, telling himself that the resemblance, the calmness, and the gestures were just coincidences. Yet his mind refused to accept that explanation. Something deep inside told him otherwise, something that he could not ignore, even if he wanted to. The twins, completely unaware of the thoughts they were stirring, continued their quiet lives. They played in the staff quarters, helped their mother with small chores, and studied diligently. Their lives were simple, yet every detail of their behavior seemed to echo qualities of a man they had never met. It was not just the physical resemblance. It was the ease with which they commanded attention, the sharpness of their observations, and the unusual confidence in their actions. One afternoon, the billionaire called the house manager to his office. He had watched the twins more closely over the past days, and a series of coincidences and observations had begun to weigh on him. He asked quietly, almost to himself, for a list of everyone who had access to the staff quarters and who had been there consistently over the last decade. The manager, slightly taken aback, complied immediately. The billionaire's tone left no room for argument. It was a command, but tinged with unease. Meanwhile, the maid continued her careful routine, moving silently through the house, always alert. She noticed subtle shifts among the staff. Some glanced at her children with curiosity, some with suspicion, and a few with open judgment. She knew it was only a matter of time before questions reached her directly. She prepared herself mentally, knowing that when the moment arrived, she would have to act swiftly to protect the twins. The twins themselves began to ask more questions. Their curiosity was natural, their minds sharp and eager. One day, while helping their mother fold laundry, they asked, "Mother, why do some people here look at us strangely?" Her hands froze mid-fold. She looked down at them, her heart tightening. She had prepared herself for questions about school, play, and daily life, but not about the unspoken tension that had started to gather around them. "They notice things sometimes," she said carefully, her voice steady. "People see things they shouldn't always notice. It doesn't matter. As long as we do what we need to, it will be fine." The children accepted her words, though their eyes reflected a small spark of curiosity and thoughtfulness. They were learning slowly to read the world around them, noticing subtleties that others overlooked. That ability, she knew, would protect them in ways she could not imagine. The billionaire could not sleep. Night after night, he replayed moments in his memory, matching them to the twins' gestures, mannerisms, and expressions. He remembered a face from his past, a face he had once known intimately. The parallels were too strong to dismiss. Each thought carried a weight of memory, regret, and unanswered questions. He felt a growing responsibility, even though he had done nothing to acknowledge it yet. One morning, while walking through the halls alone, he overheard a conversation between two older staff members. Their words, whispered but clear, cut through the quiet. "They look exactly like him. There is no mistake. I've seen many children, but not like these." He paused just out of sight, his heart beating faster. He wanted to confront them, to demand answers. But he didn't. Something inside told him to wait, to observe more. The maid, meanwhile, sensed the growing attention. She had anticipated this, but it still unsettled her. She knew that if the billionaire began to suspect the truth, he might react unpredictably. Protecting her children required careful planning. She avoided eye contact with the billionaire, kept her children close, and maintained a routine that would not draw additional attention. Yet, she knew that eventually the moment of revelation could not be avoided. At the same time, small incidents began occurring around the mansion. A staff member would mention the twins' intelligence, their grace, or their calmness in challenging situations. Another would note a striking resemblance in photographs from old family albums. Each observation seemed harmless on its own, yet together they formed a pattern the billionaire could no longer ignore. Finally, the billionaire decided to act. He asked the house manager to arrange a meeting under the pretense of discussing logistics and staffing schedules. He wanted to see the twins directly, to observe them more closely without any distractions or interference. The manager, sensing the seriousness in his tone, complied silently. On the day of the meeting, the twins were brought into the room quietly, their mother standing slightly behind them. The room was silent, heavy with unspoken tension. The billionaire sat at the far end of the table, studying the children carefully. Every detail seemed to confirm his fears: the shape of their eyes, the gestures of their hands, the calmness in their expressions. They were unmistakably connected to him. He spoke carefully, choosing words that could probe without alarming them. "You are very calm and observant," he said, his voice steady but thoughtful. "Do you notice details that others might miss?" The twins nodded politely. "Yes, sir," one of them replied. "We try to pay attention." The billionaire felt a mixture of amazement and fear. He wanted to ask more, to uncover the truth immediately, but he knew that forcing it could create damage he could not undo. He needed to be patient, to observe, to gather proof. The maid watched silently, her heart racing. She had prepared herself for a confrontation, but this was different. She realized that the billionaire's interest was not casual. It was personal. Her mind raced with possibilities, calculating how to protect her children while keeping the truth safe for the right moment. She understood now that secrecy could no longer be absolute. The situation had grown beyond her control. As the day ended and the twins were returned to the staff quarters, the billionaire remained in the office, staring at photographs of himself from years ago. Memories of a past life, decisions he had made, and a relationship he had abandoned all came flooding back. He could not ignore the similarities, the gestures, the quiet intelligence. The twins were not just children of a worker. They were undeniably connected to him in ways he had long refused to consider. Evenings became filled with silent contemplation. The billionaire walked through the mansion alone, noticing small coincidences, a pattern in the way the twins moved, a phrasing they used in conversation, the way they solved small problems with logic and patience. Each observation added weight to his growing understanding. He realized that the past, which he had buried and ignored, was now impossible to avoid. Meanwhile, the twins continued their daily routines, innocent of the storm that surrounded them. They played, studied, and helped their mother with unwavering calm. They noticed the tension, but did not understand its source. Their natural curiosity and intelligence allowed them to navigate a world that was far more complex than their young minds fully grasped. The maid continued to act with vigilance, carefully protecting her children while managing the demands of the mansion. She moved through each day with a quiet strength, aware that the balance of secrecy and truth was fragile. Each decision she made, each word she spoke, had the potential to alter the course of their lives. The mansion itself seemed to hold its breath. Staff members felt the tension, though few understood why. Even the billionaire, a man who had controlled nearly every aspect of his world, felt the limits of his power. The twins, unknowingly, had changed the dynamics of the household. Their presence, quiet and unassuming, had begun to reveal cracks in a life built on rules, control, and secrecy, and deep within the mind of the billionaire, the realization grew stronger. The truth was no longer a distant possibility. It was approaching, slowly and inevitably, and when it arrived, nothing would remain the same. The twins, innocent and unknowing, were at the center of a revelation that would shake the foundations of the household. Challenging years of secrecy and demanding answers long postponed, the mansion felt heavier that week, as though it knew something was about to happen. The billionaire moved through the rooms with a quiet intensity, his mind racing. He had observed the twins closely for weeks now, noting every gesture, every word, every expression. Each observation added to the weight of certainty that had been growing inside him. The resemblance, the mannerisms, the quiet intelligence, they were all too precise to be coincidence. Yet fear, pride, and disbelief kept him from acting immediately. The twins continued their routines, unaware of the storm gathering around them. They played in the staff quarters, helped their mother with chores, and completed their schoolwork diligently. Their calm, composed presence drew attention from everyone in the house, including the billionaire. Even in their innocence, they commanded a silent respect that could not be ignored. Their mother watched them closely, her protective instincts sharpened by the knowledge that the truth might be revealed at any moment. One afternoon, a minor accident forced the billionaire to interact more directly with the children. One of the twins had scraped a knee while running through the garden. The billionaire, who had been walking nearby, approached without thinking. He knelt down, his hand hesitating just above the child's injury. The twins looked at him without fear, their eyes steady and curious. Something about the calm confidence in those eyes made his chest tighten. He gently cleaned the wound, careful not to startle the child. His touch, though professional and careful, felt natural in a way he could not explain. Memories he had tried to forget returned with a sharp clarity. The feel of small hands, the laughter, the innocence, everything collided with the reality of the twins in front of him. For the first time in years, he felt an unshakable connection that could not be denied. The maid arrived shortly after. Carrying a small bag of bandages and ointment, she looked at the billionaire with cautious eyes, aware of the tension in the air. He handed the child back gently, his expression unreadable. She thanked him quietly and guided the twins away, her mind racing with concern. The encounter had been brief, yet it carried a weight she could not ignore. The billionaire's reaction had confirmed what she had long feared. He was beginning to realize the truth. That evening, the billionaire sat alone in his office, staring at photographs from the past. Faces, memories, moments of laughter and sorrow, they all came rushing back. He remembered a time when he had been different, when he had believed in possibilities and trust. He thought about the choices he had made, the woman he had left behind, and the child he had never known. The realization hit him like a wave. The twins were his children, and he had unknowingly ignored them for years. The next day, he arranged a private meeting with the house manager and a trusted advisor. He needed clarity, confirmation, and guidance. The manager, sensing the seriousness in the billionaire's voice, agreed to provide a full history of the staff, their interactions, and any relevant events. The advisor, more cautious, warned him to proceed carefully, reminding him that the revelation could have far-reaching consequences for the household and beyond. The billionaire listened, absorbing every detail, knowing that patience and caution were crucial. Meanwhile, the maid sensed that the moment of truth was approaching. She had prepared for years to protect her children, but now the walls around her carefully constructed life were starting to crumble. She knew that if the billionaire discovered the truth too abruptly, it could disrupt not only her children's lives, but also their safety. She began to teach the twins small lessons about observation, caution, and the importance of silence. They were old enough to understand, yet young enough to remain innocent. She balanced their education with protection. Knowing that the delicate equilibrium of their lives depended on it, one afternoon, the billionaire requested a casual conversation with the twins in the garden. He wanted to observe them more closely, to understand their personalities, and to gauge their awareness. The twins approached cautiously, guided by their mother. They sat on a bench, polite and attentive. The billionaire asked simple questions at first, about their schoolwork, their interests, and their hobbies. He observed their answers, their thought processes, and the subtle ways they expressed themselves. As the conversation continued, he noticed small details that struck him deeply. The way one twin tilted their head when thinking, the particular phrasing of a sentence. The calm steadiness in their gaze, all of it mirrored moments from his past that he had long tried to forget. The connection was undeniable, yet he struggled to process it. He realized that these children, in their innocence, were unknowingly revealing the truth he had buried for years. The maid watched from a distance, her heart pounding. She knew that this interaction was critical. The billionaire's questions were innocent on the surface, but his eyes betrayed a deeper understanding. She prepared herself for the moment when he would ask the question she had feared most. She stayed calm, ready to protect her children while managing the delicate situation. That evening, the billionaire called for a DNA test, a modern confirmation of what he suspected. He arranged for it discreetly, ensuring that the process would not alarm the children or the staff. His heart was heavy with anticipation. He knew that the confirmation would change everything, yet he also felt a strange sense of relief. The uncertainty that had haunted him for weeks could finally be addressed. Days passed as the test results were processed. The billionaire continued to observe the twins, noting their behavior, their intelligence, and their interactions with each other and their mother. Each observation reinforced his growing certainty. He realized that the truth was no longer a possibility, it was inevitable. The twins were his children. The consequences of this revelation would ripple through every aspect of his life. Finally, the results arrived. The DNA test confirmed what the billionaire had long suspected. The twins were indeed his biological children. The truth, undeniable and clear, filled the mansion with an unspoken tension. The billionaire held the results in his hands, feeling a mixture of shock, relief, and overwhelming responsibility. He knew that the next steps would require careful thought, empathy, and courage. The maid sensed the shift immediately. She had anticipated this moment, but even her preparation could not erase the weight of it. She knew that the billionaire would now approach the situation with a level of seriousness that could not be ignored. She needed to protect her children while navigating the delicate path ahead. That night, the billionaire reflected on the past, the choices he had made, and the life that had unfolded without him. He thought about the twins, their innocence, their intelligence, and their calm strength. He realized that acknowledging them would not only change his life, but also the lives of everyone in the household. He knew that he had to act with care, compassion, and patience, ensuring that the revelation would be received with dignity and respect. The twins slept peacefully, unaware of the storm that had settled over the mansion. Their mother watched them, her heart filled with love, fear, and determination. She knew that the days ahead would be challenging, but she also knew that the truth had a power that could not be denied. She had protected her children for years, and now she would guide them through the changes that were coming. The mansion, once a place of strict rules and silent obedience, now held the promise of revelation, reconciliation, and transformation. Every room, every corridor, every shadow seemed to anticipate the moment when the truth would be spoken. The billionaire, the maid, and the twins were all on the brink of a discovery that would alter their lives forever. And when that moment arrived, nothing would remain the same. The morning sunlight spilled across the mansion, warming the large rooms and long hallways. The billionaire sat in his office, holding the DNA results carefully, as if the paper itself carried the weight of the truth. He had spent sleepless nights reflecting on the past, the choices he had made, and the life that had unfolded without him. Now the undeniable proof lay before him. The twins were his children. He could no longer deny it, and he knew that this truth would change everything. He called the house manager quietly, ensuring that only trusted staff would be aware of the situation. The conversation was short, precise, and careful. He wanted to plan the introduction carefully, to approach it with respect, to ensure that the children would not be frightened or overwhelmed. He understood that his presence in their lives would be unfamiliar and even intimidating, yet necessary. The maid sensed a change in the mansion that morning. Even the air seemed heavier, charged with unspoken awareness. She watched her children as they went about their routines, teaching them small lessons in patience, observation, and understanding. She had spent years preparing for this moment, but preparation could not erase the fear she felt now. The truth had a power that could not be contained, and she had to protect her children while navigating the storm ahead. The twins, unaware of the depth of the events unfolding around them, played quietly in the staff quarters. They noticed the subtle shifts, the quiet whispers among the staff, the unusually serious faces, and the tension in the air. But their innocence remained intact. They were children first, curious and observant. Yet unburdened by the weight of adult expectations and past mistakes, the billionaire finally approached the staff quarters, accompanied only by the house manager. The twins looked up as he entered, their calm expressions unwavering. Their mother stood slightly behind them, her eyes alert, her heart racing. She had taught them to respect elders, but she also ensured they knew to remain cautious in unfamiliar situations. He knelt slightly, to be at eye level with the twins. His voice was steady, though his emotions ran deep. "I have something important to tell you," he began. "It may be surprising, and it may be difficult to understand, but it is the truth. You are very special, and there is something I need you to know about your family." The twins listened intently, their small faces reflecting curiosity and focus. They did not speak, allowing him the space to share the words he had kept inside for years. The billionaire continued carefully, recounting memories of the past, explaining decisions he had made, and finally revealing the undeniable connection that the DNA had confirmed. He spoke honestly, with humility and without expectation. Giving them the space to absorb the information, the maid watched silently, her emotions complex. Relief mixed with fear, pride mixed with uncertainty. She had protected her children for years, guided them through life with patience. And now, she witnessed a moment she had long anticipated. Her role shifted subtly from protector in secrecy to guide in truth. She stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on their shoulders. Grounding them in love and support, the twins reacted with quiet thoughtfulness. There were no screams, no immediate questions, just a moment of comprehension. They looked at the billionaire, then at their mother, processing the revelation slowly. The calmness they had always carried did not waver. Instead, it deepened. They were children who had been prepared to navigate life with care. And now, they faced a truth that could have shaken them entirely, over the next few days. The household adjusted to the new reality. The billionaire spent more time with the twins, observing them, engaging in conversation, and slowly building trust. He was careful not to overwhelm them, respecting their routines and their mother's guidance. The twins began to respond to his presence naturally, their curiosity guiding gentle questions and observations. He answered patiently, sharing memories and experiences that shaped him. Always mindful of their young age and need for stability, the maid continued her role with vigilance. She had taught her children to observe, to think critically, and to remain calm under pressure. Now, those lessons were more important than ever. She guided them in understanding their father's intentions, the complexities of wealth and influence, and the importance of honesty and integrity. Her calm presence provided a sense of security, allowing the twins to navigate the sudden changes in their lives with confidence. As weeks turned into months, the relationship between the billionaire and the twins grew. He found himself astonished by their intelligence, their insight, and their empathy. They were children shaped by love, protection, and careful guidance, yet untouched by fear or bitterness. Their mother watched quietly, proud of the resilience her children had developed and cautious of the evolving dynamics in the household. The mansion itself seemed to transform with the revelation. Spaces that had once felt cold and rigid now carried warmth. Conversations grew more open, interactions more genuine, and the subtle tension that had filled the air slowly lifted. Staff members observed the changes with curiosity and respect, adjusting to the new family dynamic and embracing the renewed, assert sense of connection that had emerged. The billionaire reflected frequently on the lessons he had learned. Life had presented him with unexpected truths, forcing him to confront his past, acknowledge his mistakes, and embrace responsibility. He realized that wealth, power, and influence could never replace the importance of family, love, and honesty. The twins, with their quiet strength and insight, had taught him more than he could have imagined. The twins, for their part, grew increasingly comfortable in their evolving world. They continued their routines, excelled in their studies, and maintained the calm confidence that had always set them apart. They learned to engage with their father, ask questions, and express themselves freely, guided by the support of their mother. Together, the three navigated the complexities of family, trust, and identity, forging a bond rooted in love and understanding. The maid, finally able to breathe with a sense of relief, continued to guide her children with patience and wisdom. She observed the billionaire's genuine efforts to connect, the twins' growing comfort, and the gradual harmony within the household. Her protective instincts remained, but they were now balanced with trust and hope for the future. She had prepared for this moment for years, and now she witnessed its unfolding with quiet pride and satisfaction. Over time, the billionaire introduced the twins to his broader world carefully, gradually, and always with sensitivity to their age and readiness. They met relatives, saw glimpses of the life that had once been inaccessible to them, and began to understand the scale of his world. Yet their mother ensured that the children remained grounded, teaching them the values of humility, kindness, and integrity amidst newfound opportunities. The story of the maid and her twins became one of quiet triumph. Years of patience, careful protection, and unwavering love had guided the children to this point. The revelation of their true parentage, though momentous, was met with grace and understanding. Their father, once distant and unaware, became an integral part of their lives. Learning from their insight and innocence as much as they learned from him, in the grand halls of the mansion, life moved forward. The billionaire, the maid, and the twins navigated their new reality together. Their journey was one of reconciliation, growth, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Every day brought new lessons, shared experiences, and the deepening of trust and love. The past, once buried in secrecy, had emerged to shape a future filled with understanding and connection. And as the sun set over the mansion, casting warm light across its rooms, the family sat together in quiet reflection. The twins, their mother, and their father were no longer separated by uncertainty or secrecy. They were united by truth, strengthened by patience, and guided by love. The mansion, once a place of rigid rules and quiet tension, had transformed into a home filled with warmth, hope, and the promise of a shared future. The story, which had begun in secrecy and fear, now found its resolution in acceptance, understanding, and the unshakable bond of family.